And it often starts when the world is still asleep. Every morning is a new beginning, a fresh breath inviting you to return to yourself. And in this very moment, as you awaken to a new day, it all starts when the purified sleep. Let this truth sink deeply into your soul. I am safe here. These 4 words may seem simple, but they carry the power to reshape your entire reality. And often it's still asleep. You don't need to fight the past or fear the future. In this moment, right here, right now, you are held by the loving arms of life itself. And Idostoshan Socrates is still asleep. Louise Hay reminded us that life loves us. Let that love be your starting point today, every day we wake up. And often starts when the world is still on begins to race. Thoughts of yesterday's regrets and tomorrow's worries come rushing in before we even open our eyes. But what if instead? And it often starts when Morsal is still asleep. You paused and whispered to yourself, I am safe here. These 4 simple words are more than just a phrase, and often starts when the world is still asleep. They are a declaration to the universe that you choose peace over panic. In this moment, you are not running, you are not fighting, you are not doubting. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. You are simply existing in the now, and the now is the only place where healing can truly happen. When you repeat this affirmation, is still asleep, you invite yourself back into your body, back into your breath, and back into your truth. Still asleep, too often we spend our lives living in the echo of old pain or in the shadow of future fears. We replay conversations that hurt us. It starts when the orphan is still asleep, for we start to imagine disasters that haven't happened. When you say, I am safe here, you cut through that noise. And it often starts when the world is asleep. You give your nervous system permission to relax. You signal to your heart that it no longer needs to armor itself. This moment is not the past. It often starts when the world is still asleep. It is not a battlefield. It is a soft, sacred space where you are allowed to just be. That simple phrase becomes a spiritual reset button. When the world is still asleep, reminding you that your power lives in the present, not in the stories of what was or what might be. And it starts when often is still asleep. Imagine starting your morning with affirmation written on your mirror, spoken with gentle conviction as you brush your teeth. Still asleep. The words begin to rewire the pathways of your mind. You begin to move differently, breathe deeper, speak softer. And often starts when the world is still asleep. You stop looking for danger in places where there is none, and instead you find peace in the details. The way the light spills across your room often starts when the world is still asleep. The calm hum of the world waking up, the rhythm of your own heartbeat. That's what I am safe here brings you. It often starts when the world is still asleep, the ability to reconnect with what's real, what's loving, what's alive in this very instant. It often starts when the world is still asleep. This practice is not about denying pain or pretending everything is perfect. It's not to choosing not let fear define your experience. The world is still asleep. Safety doesn't mean the absence of problems. It means the presence of trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in your journey. Is still asleep. Trust that you are capable of meeting whatever comes your way. Isartsmofren is still asleep. When you anchor into the affirmation, I am safe here, you become the calm in the middle of any storm. And often starts when the world is still sleepy. You create space within yourself that no chaos can touch. That is your power, and no one can take it from you. Over time, and often still asleep, this daily grounding becomes a part of you. You may still face challenges, feel grief, or experience uncertainty, but your response shifts. When the world is still asleep, instead of spiraling, you pause, you breathe, you return to your anchor. I am safe here. This becomes your inner compass, your emotional home. And often starts when the world is still. It's from that place of grounded safety. You can make decisions not out of fear, but from clarity and self-love. Your life begins to reflect that peace. And it often starts when the world is still asleep, but relationships feel more stable, your thoughts feel more centered, and your dreams no longer feel so distant. You deserve to feel safe in your skin. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. In your choices, in your life, that sense of safety doesn't have to come from others. It can be something you give to yourself every single day. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. I am safe here. Safe here. You're not only calming your mind, you're reclaiming your power. You're telling your inner child, sort of still asleep. Your past self, your anxious self, you are held, you are owed, you are home or supported or home, and in doing so you step into each day with strength. Softness is still asleep. And deep, unshareable self-love isn't something you achieve once and then check off a list. It's a daily devotion. And often that's when the world is still asleep. Your relationship you'll build with yourself moment by moment. Every time you look in the mirror, every thought you think is still asleep. Every word you speak to yourself becomes part of that relationship. And like any relationship, it needs attention, patience, and care. And also when the world is still asleep, you don't fall in love with yourself in a single day. It's a process of remembering your worth again and again. And it often starts, well, if we're asleep, there will be days when it feels easy and others when it feels impossible. But the magic happens when you show up anyway, when the world is still asleep, and when you choose to whisper kindness to yourself on the days you feel most unworthy. That's when true transformation begins. When the world is still asleep, your inner voice is the most powerful influence in your life. What it says becomes the story you live by. It often starts and the world is still asleep. That's why it's so important to speak to yourself with compassion. You don't have to wait until you're perfect to start loving yourself. In fact, is still asleep. And real self-love begins in the messy places, in the pain, in the insecurity, in the healing. When you say to yourself, is this all asleep? And I'm doing my best, or I am worthy even when I struggle. You break the cycle of self-judgment. You start creating safety within yourself. And it often starts when the world is asleep. And in that safety, peace starts to grow. Confidence starts to bloom. You start to feel more at home in your body and your mind. And it often is still asleep. There is no end point where you suddenly become flawless and finally lovable. You are already lovable right now as you are. Second, it often starts when the world is still asleep. The work of self, love is about remembering that truth. One truth when the world tries to make you forget. It's in choosing to feed your spirit with positivity. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. Instead of starving it with criticism, it's waking up and choosing yourself again and again. Sacrosartion starts when the world is still asleep and on the days when you can't find the strength to love yourself fully. It's okay to simply be gentle. Even softness is a form of self-love. Starts when the world is still asleep. Even the act of trying counts. Your effort matters more than perfection ever could. Obsessive, and it often starts when the world is still asleep. Pressing self-love doesn't mean you ignore your flaws. It means you accept that being human means being imperfect. It means you honor your emotions. And Solar starts when the world is still asleep. Listen to your needs and allow yourself space to grow with shame. Shading boundaries, you start setting people up, push people, but to protect your peace. And it often sounds like you starts when the world is still asleep. You stop apologizing for existing, for feeling, for dreaming. You begin to understand that your worth isn't up for debate. Soft and sacred is still asleep. It never dependent on what you've done, what you look like, or what anyone else thinks. It simply is. And when you embrace that, and it separate is still asleep, your entire world begins to shift. The more you practice self-love, the more resilient you become. Life still brings its challenges. Adrian Novin starts often is still asleep, but you no longer crumble under pressure. You don't fall apart because someone doesn't approve of you. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. You've built something stronger within yourself, a foundation of truth, and inner peace. People feel it when you walk into a room. And it often is still asleep. And they see the way you carry yourself, not with arrogance, but with quiet confidence. Because when you love yourself, it's still asleep, and even you don't need to prove your worth. You embody it. You shine from within. And so let self-love be your practice, not your prize. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. Make your morning ritual your midday reminder, your nighttime reflection. Let it be the voice that says, I'm proud of you when no one else does. It's still asleep. Let it be the energy that moves you forward when doubt tries to pull you back. With each day you choose compassion over criticism, softness over shame. And it often starts when the world is still asleep and you become more of who you really are. But the version shaped by fear, but the version shaped by truth, that's the journey of self-love. And it often just starts when the world is still a destination, but daily homecoming to your own heart. Every thought you think is a message to your mind, body, and spirit. And it often is still asleep. Your inner dialogue isn't just background noise. It's a creative force shaping the world you experience. And it often starts when the world is asleep. Louise Hay taught us that our thoughts become things, and with each belief we repeat, we build a reality mirrors it back to us. And it often starts in still asleep. If your mind is filled with criticism, fear, and self-doubt, the world will begin to reflect those emotions to you through tension, resistance. It often starts when the world and unref is still asleep. But when you choose to speak lovingly to yourself, when you affirm, I deeply love and accept myself, you plant seeds of healing. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. With daily repetition, those seeds grow into a garden of peace and of confidence that surrounds every part of your life. It often still asleep when the world's most people don't realize how powerful their inner voice really is. The thoughts we think the most become the beliefs that drive our choices. Starts when the world is still asleep, attract our relationships and shape how we treat ourselves. If you constantly tell yourself you're not enough, you'll start to shrink. And it often starts when the world is sleepy. You'll settle for less, accept mistreatment, or sabotage your own happiness. But if you tell yourself, I am worthy of love, success, still asleep, enjoy, something amazing starts to happen. Your mind shifts, your heart opens. And you give salvage sleep. It often starts when the world is still asleep. If you take actions that align with the actual live. That's not want to lick. It's mindset, and your mindset is everything. Is still asleep on the affirmation, I deeply love and accept myself, is one of the most healing phrases you can speak. If it is still asleep, it reaches deep into the parts of you that feel unseen or unworthy. It comforts the inner child who's still holding on to pain. Is when the world is still asleep. It soothes the voice that says you're not good enough, and even if you don't fully believe it at first. So it often is still asleep. Saying it consistently begins to soften your resistance. Your subconscious starts to listen. It begins to let go of old limiting beliefs and embrace new. Is still asleep. We're empowering you, and the warring truths. Every time you speak it, you are rewriting the script of your love, not fear. And often starts when the world is still asleep. It's not just emotional healing that begins when you shift your thoughts. It's physical healing too. And it often starts when in the world is asleep. Louise Hay often spoke about the connection between thoughts and the body. Negative thinking patterns can manifest as stress, illness, and imbalance. And it often starts still asleep. But when you flood your mind with positive, supportive affirmations, your body responds with relaxation, renewal, and vitality. You start to feel lighter. The world is still asleep. Calmer, more energized, wise. Mind-body connection is real, and it listens closely to every thought you entertain. Often starts when the world is still asleep. So why not speak to yourself like someone who is already whole, already enough, already loved? Is Stockiver still asleep? And this transformation doesn't require perfection. It only asks for presence. You don't need to force yourself to be positive 24/7. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. You just need to become aware, catch the thoughts that are harming you, pause, and then choose again. Choose love over fear. It starts when the world is still asleep. Choose compassion over judgment. Choose healing over hiding. Over time, the more you repeat affirmations that empower you, the more natural they become. Is still asleep when the world they begin to replace the inner critic with an inner coach. Someone who reminds you of your strength, your beauty, your limitless potential. Is when the world is still asleep. You are the thinker of your thoughts, which means you have the power to change them. You are not a prisoner of your past beliefs. And as often still asleep, you are a creator of your present experience. And with each loving thought, with each gentle affirmation, each intentional moment of self-acceptance, and often still asleep, you build a new foundation, one based on peace, not pain. Louise Hay's legacy is proof of this truth when you change your thoughts. And it often starts while it's still asleep. You change your life. And when you tell yourself, I deeply love and accept myself, the universe listens and begins to align in your favor. And it often starts when Sacral is still asleep, but there is an invisible intelligence that weaves through every part of this universe, an energy that responds to force, but to alignment, is still asleep. When you choose peace over chaos, when you choose love over fear, you begin to tune into the frequency of that intelligence. Suddenly, and it often starts when the world is still asleep. Life doesn't feel like it's working against you. It begins to feel like it's working with you, for you, and through you. Often still starts is often not about being passive or avoiding life's challenges. It's about standing in your calm, and often starts when the world is still asleep, knowing that the more you center yourself in trust and self-love, the more you open the gates to grace, healing, and abundance that you never saw coming. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. Peace isn't something you find out there. It's something you choose in here. Every time you respond instead of react, breathe instead of panic, is still asleep. Forgive instead of hold on. You invite the universe to guide you gently. You create a space where blessings can land, and often starts when the world is asleep, because your heart is open and your energy is clear. The universe cannot deliver what you don't make room for, is still asleep. So when you let go of control and soften into trust, miracles begin to show up in ways you didn't expect. A chance encounter, a sudden idea, is still asleep. When a door you thought was closed begins to slowly open, all because you chose peace. Self-love is the language the universe understands. And often starts when the world is still asleep. It sees how you treat yourself and reflects it back. If you honor your worth, others will too. If you believe you are supported, you will be. It's still asleep, but still asleep, but it starts within. Choosing peace is choosing to believe that no matter what's happening, you are guided. Starts when the world is still asleep, that there's a deeper wisdom moving beneath the surface of your struggles. Louise Hay taught us to affirm. So they're all still asleep. Life loves me. Imagine waking up each morning and truly believing that life itself wants you to win, to heal, to rise. And it often is still a start sleep. When the world is asleep, that belief can change everything. From your relationships to your finances, to the way you speak to your own reflection. There is strength in stillness. Is still asleep. In a world that worships hustle and chaos, choosing peace can feel radical. But peace is not weakness, it is clarity. It is power, and often is still asleep. It is the calm eye of the storm from which true decisions are made. When you anchor yourself in peace, the universe can finally reach you. When the world is still asleep, the noise quiets, your vision sharpens. You begin to see solutions instead of problems, opportunities instead of obstacles. And they often sacrifice when the world is still asleep. It's not that the universe changes, it's that you do. And from the inner shift, your outer world begins to transform in extraordinary ways. And it often starts, and is sleep. Healing begins the moment you stop fighting yourself. That's what peace really is, a truce between the different parts of you. The part that's afraid, and often starts when the world is still asleep, the part that wants to heal, the part that still remembers old pain, all of them are welcome in peace. And often starts when the world is still asleep. And when you stop resisting your feeling and start honoring your truth, you create a sacred space where healing can finally take root. The world is still asleep, and once you are aligned with that inner harmony, the universe mirrors that harmony back. What was once chaotic begins to calm. And it often starts when the world's hurt begins to fall asleep. What once felt impossible begins to unfold. So as you walk through your day, remind yourself gently. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. For asleep, the universe supports me when I choose peace. Say it not as a wish, but as a truth. Feel it settle into your body. Let it guide your steps. Often starts when the world, your choice, still asleep, as your energy. You don't need to know how everything will work out. You just need to trust that it will. And that trust, that peace, and it often starts when the world is still asleep, becomes your superpower, because when you align with love and trust instead of fear and control, you're not just surviving anymore. By sacrifice, and it often starts when the world is still asleep, you're co-creating your life with the most powerful force in existence, and that is when everything starts to flow. In the midst of all the noise, it starts when the world is still asleep, pressure and uncertainty that life throws at you. There exists a sacred space that is always available, this moment right now. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. It doesn't matter what happened yesterday or what might happen tomorrow. The only thing that's truly real is this breath, this heartbeat, For it often still is still asleep, this very second, and in this second you are safe. The present moment asks nothing from you except to be. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. I see you to let go of the past and step away from the worries of the future. It doesn't judge you. It doesn't rush you. It welcomes you. And it often stirs still asleep. When you choose to return to the now, you are choosing to come home to yourself. It often starts when the world is asleep. And the beauty of the present moment is that it doesn't depend on your circumstances. You could be surrounded by chaos, drowning in uncertainty, and it often starts when the world is still asleep or facing heartbreak and still have the powers to breathe and find peace within. And it often starts when the world is asleep. You may not be able to change everything outside of you right away, but you can always change how you meet the moment. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. That choice is where your strength lives. It's in that breath where you find your clarity. In that pause, you find your balance. In that quiet space. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. You remember you are not your stress, your thoughts, or your emotions. You are the awareness behind it all. Still for sleep. Louise Hay often reminded us that we are never truly stuck unless we decide to be. And the way out is through the now. Is still asleep. It is in choosing to be fully present, even when it's hard, that you begin to heal. Because here, in this moment, and it often still asleep, we're not carrying the weight of every mistake you've ever made. You are not reliving old stories or chasing distant futures. It starts when the world is still asleep. You are simply here, and here is enough. Here is sacred. Here is where your power lives. Every breath you take is a gentle return. And it often starts when the world is still asleep, a soft declaration that no matter what's swirling around you, you are choosing peace. The present moment is the only place where change can begin. And it also often starts when the world is still asleep. You can't go right the past and you can't control the future, but you can show up right now with intention, grace, and love. Sacrifice, and it often starts still asleep. You can take one conscious breath, feel and ground beneath your feet, and know that you are okay. This moment doesn't require perfection. And it often starts well asleep, and it doesn't ask you to fix everything. It simply asks you to feel it, live it, and honor it. Because when you fully step into the now, it's still asleep. You step out of fear and into freedom, the anxiety fades, the confusion clears, and your soul exhales with relief. And often starts still asleep. You might feel tempted to escape into your thoughts, into distractions, into worry. But peace never lives in the future. It only lives here. And often starts when the world is asleep. When you learn to trust the now, you learn to trust yourself. You begin to see that nothing truly needs to be forced or feared. That when you slow down, and often starts when the world is still asleep, listen in and ground yourself in the present, the answers often rise effortlessly. The clarity comes. The strength reveals itself. Is still asleep. The world may still be wild, but you are rooted. You are steady. You are present. And in presence, everything softens. Stay on pourquoi fondrinist, and then it often still you and also if the world feels overwhelming or uncertain, and know this, you always have access to peace. You don't need to earn it, chase it. It often starts still asleep. Wait for the perfect conditions. It is already within you. Your breath is your doorway. Your awareness is your guide. And this moment is your sanctuary. Is still asleep and return to it as often as you need. Come back again and again. Because no matter what's happening out there, here, in this quiet, to sacred now, you are held, you are supported, you are safe. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. There's just something powerful and healing in the realization that you don't have to earn your worth. You don't need to hustle to be lovable. Is still asleep and or fix every flaw to deserve peace. Right now, exactly as you are. Messy, growing, imperfect, you are enough. You always have been. And still asleep. The world may have told you otherwise, made you feel like you needed to be more, do more, or become someone else just to be worthy. But the truth is, and often sacred starts when the world is still asleep. Your presence is already a gift. You don't have to prove your value by being everything to everyone. You are already valuable because you exist. Is still asleep. When you were born worthy, and no mistake or struggle can erase that truth. We live our lives trapped in a cycle of self-improvement. It sacrifice when the world is still asleep, and not because we want to grow, but because we secretly believe we aren't good enough until we become something else. Still asleep, but growth rooted in shame never brings peace. It only deepens the pain. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. Reeling starts when you stop trying to change yourself to fit someone else's definition of worthy and begin to embrace the wholeness of who you already are. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. And when you say to yourself, I am enough, you're not being arrogant, you're being honest. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. You're choosing to see through the illusion that you are broken, and instead you're stepping into the light of your own truth. Is still asleep. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a soul to be loved. Every scar, every emotion is still asleep. And every lesson you carry has shaped you into someone who has shaped you into zillion real. You don't need to hide the parts of you that feel raw or tender. In fact, often starts when the world is still asleep. It is in showing up fully with your joy and your pain that you create the space for true connection and healing. For sacrifice, and it often starts when the world is still asleep. Your vulnerability doesn't make you weak, it makes you brave. And your willingness to be yourself, even in a world that demands perfection, and it is of still asleep, is a radical act of self-love. By accepting who you are, you inspire others to do the same. And then it often starts when the world is still asleep. Imagine how different your day feels. You walk through the world with the knowing that you are already enough. And it often starts when the world is work and is asleep. You would speak with more kindness, to stand with more confidence, and love without so much fear. You wouldn't need to chase validation or fear rejection. Is still asleep, because then your sense of self-worth will be rooted in something unshakable. And I'll start see when the world is still asleep, that kind of acceptance doesn't come from the outside. It's a quiet decision made on the inside again and again. And often starts when the world is still asleep. It's in every time you choose rest over burnout, gentleness over judgment, and truth over pretending. It often starts when the world is still asleep. Healing means changing. Healing doesn't coming home to who you are. It means coming who you've been. Underneath all the noise, the pressure, often starts when the world is still asleep, and the roles you've had to play is a soul that has always been whole. You don't need to become someone else to be deserving of love, safety. So it often starts when the world is still asleep, and belonging you already are. The more you embrace that truth, the more your world begins to reflect it. Relationships shift, your energy softens. This starts when it often should start. The world is still asleep, and life begins to feel more like something you're living from the inside out, not something you're trying to survive. And so core 5 starts when you're asleep, because when you accept yourself fully, you stop fighting life and start flowing with it. So take a breath and let it sink in. You are enough. It starts when the world is still asleep, because of what you do, not because of who you are. Not because you've achieved something, but because you exist. And it often starts asleep when the world is still. That's all it takes to be worthy of love, peace, and joy. And joy. You don't have to fix yourself to be worthy of healing. It starts when the world is asleep. You don't have to shrink to be accepted. You don't have to hide to be safe. You just have to be. And in that being, in that presence, is still asleep. Your true power rises. Not from effort, but from truth. Not from affection, but from love. In a world that constantly urges you to become more, do more. Some starts when the world is still asleep. Be someone else choosing to believe that you leave you enough exactly as you are is an act of quiet revolution. True self-love begins not with striving, starts still asleep, but with acceptance, the gentle, powerful acknowledgement that your worth is not dependent on perfection, performance, or approval. The peace you seek, and it often starts when the world is still asleep. The healing you long for and the love you deserve all begin within you. Right now, in this very moment, you have everything you need to live fully. And it often starts when the world is still asleep. And breathe deeply and walk confidently. You are not broken. You are becoming. And the more you return to the truth that you are safe, worthy, and supported, and it also is still asleep, the more life will begin to reflect the love back to you. So breathe it in, believe it deeply, and carry it with you. Still asleep, you are enough, and that is more than enough.